Welcome to another episode here at Blue Duck Fantasy Football. Today we are doing another mock draft, this time from pick number 10. And today we're going to be doing a zero RB strategy. For those of you not familiar with zero RB, basically we won't be picking running backs early. We're going to be focusing on wide receivers and maybe a tight end. We do have 3 wide receivers to fill plus a flex. This is PPR, so we're going to be looking to get 4 wide receivers and a tight end, possibly a quarterback, before we start looking at running backs. And if you're wondering why someone would go with this strategy, does it work? Well, let's look at some of the running backs that did really well last year that kind of came out of nowhere. We had James Robinson, basically the fantasy MVP that some people got for free after their drafts or after week 1 if he was still available. We had guys like Myles Gaskin come out of nowhere and have a solid 10-week span. We had Mike Davis, who filled in for Christian McCaffrey for most of the season and had a very good year. So there are these running backs that you can pick up that don't cost a lot and that give you a great chance of winning. You know, we've had Aaron Jones in the past come up and be a guy like that. There's plenty of examples. So it is a strategy that can work, but you have to be either hitting on some of the guys you get late or being very good and spending a lot of your money on the waiver wire to get those guys when they break out and when there are injuries. So let's get right into the draft. Okay, we almost had to basically switch up the strategy as Dalvin Cook fell to spot number 6. Now, that is just way too late to be taking Dalvin Cook. He should have been the second running back off the board. There's problems with Barkley. He might not be healthy for week 1. So if you flip him and Cook, I'm fine with it. Only 1 wide receiver gone. We will not be taking Travis Kelce at this point, even though it says best player available. We are going to go with wide receiver, and I'm absolutely fine with Davante Adams. He's a great pick. Aaron Rodgers is back, so let's go Davante Adams, and let's move on and see which wide receiver we get in the second round. There goes Kelce, which is fine. Again, our focus here is mainly wide receivers. We're going to have 4 wide receiver spots to fill, the 3 wide receiver spots and the flex. So we want to get 4 great ones, and we're also going to need a 5th one because that's 4 games that someone's going to have to fill in for, so that's 25% of the season, not including any type of injuries. So Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley. I actually prefer Calvin Ridley out of all these players here, and I doubt he comes back to me, but I don't mind Stephon Diggs either, so I will take Stephon Diggs since that's the ADP, just in the hopes that maybe Calvin Ridley falls back to me. You can always just check our rankings on BlueDuckFantasy.com. They are there, and as you can see, I have Calvin Ridley at the number 1 spot in PPR, ahead of Davante Adams, but I have Hopkins. I actually had Hopkins ahead of, but Hopkins was already gone. All right, back to me. Calvin Ridley did not fall all the way back, and if you're wondering what this sheet is, this is an ADP that we update weekly, and we'll be updating even more often as we get closer to the season. So we have PPR, half PPR, and non-PPR, so you get a nice visual of what the ADP looks like. And you can see we were picking in this 10 spot here. So Hill that's about where he gets picked. We took Adams as Hill was gone, and then we took Stephon Diggs, who technically goes at this spot. Looking here, we're hoping to have one of these 2 guys available. So this is free. It's just on a Google Sheet. The link will be in the description, and I'll post a comment with the link as well so that you can get this and use it to dominate your draft. All right, wide receiver, we have Allen Robinson, Julio Jones, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Godwin. None of the top 3 tight ends are there, so we're going to wait. I'll probably be looking to get TJ Hawkinson. I just don't see these 2 guys being worth it since I have him ahead of them. I'd be fine with Fant, Goddard, Gesicki's getting a little bit lean, and Gronk. None of these guys. Actually, Tunyon would be okay, and Irv would be a last-ditch effort. But with us not focusing on running back, we should be able to get a tight end earlier. Take a quick peek at quarterbacks. We still see 4 great players there. So Not going to go quarterback at this time. We're going to go wide receiver. Allen Robinson, just going to check the rankings here to make sure he's my guy. I believe he will be. And again, those rankings, blueduckfantasy.com. I have Robinson just ahead of Amari Cooper and ahead of the rest of the guys here as well. So Allen Robinson on the team, wide receiver number 3. And for those of you wondering, I did do a draft like this last year. I didn't plan to go 0 running back. It was just kind of the way it worked out. The team ended up pretty good, but injuries to Golladay, injuries to Michael Thomas really hurt the team. But running backs, I had Kareem Hunt, who I was able to flip for a better running back once Chubb was injured. Other running back I had was David Montgomery. So again, you're not fully punting on running back, but I did take 4 wide receivers out of the gates. I had Adams, Michael Thomas, Golladay, and Amari Cooper. So a very similar strategy that was used. And now we're back here, and Amari Cooper would be the next player to pick here, as he is my next pick. Just going to check the consensus because Matt's rankings are up there as well. He's quite high on Keenan Allen, who is gone. For some reason, everybody's really high on Keenan Allen this year. In most years, he's around the 15 spot, and this year he's in the top 10. I guess it's the Herbert love. Robinson, he has Godwin after him. So Cooper is a bit lower than Godwin, so it'd be a toss-up between those two. PPR, I prefer Godwin over Mike Evans, even though Mike had a great season last year. But I'm going to go Amari Cooper here. People forget how good Amari Cooper was before the Dak injury. He was lighting it up. If you take a look at his little sheet here, we will see that in 2020, that's what he's finished with, but that was with Dak only playing 5 games. So you can see the fantasy points here, 18, 16, 17, 33.4, and this is the game where he gets hurt, the Giants game. And then he was still good with Arizona, 20.9. So I still haven't picked him. There we go. Amari Cooper, welcome to the team. Okay, so we got 4 wide receivers. We can start looking at running backs here. It's basically the strategy to get your starting lineup. I don't want to force a tight end. I just saw a bunch of quarterbacks go. I'd be open to taking Dak if he falls. But I also want to have a quick peek at running back now, because we've taken the punt on running back. We haven't used a lot of draft capital on it. Kenny Golladay is there, though, and that's really exciting for me. I think he's going to be great. People forget how good he was as well. He's a top 20 guy for me, and I know I'm a lot higher than the ADP or the consensus, but I have him ahead of just by 1 spot, Jamar Chase. CeeDee Lamb fell really far, too. I don't know if I would have been comfortable taking 2 wide receivers from the same team. I can tell you I wouldn't have been taking Adam Thielen, that's for sure. Just looking at these other wide receivers, too, like I like Deontay Johnson, DJ Chark, Cortland Sutton, I like a lot. So there is some depth if we want to get that 5th guy who's not going to play. But you have to also be thinking trade value. If Kenny Golladay hits for the Giants, he's a guy that you can easily flip, and you're going to get great return for him, because he's going to be that top 15 guy, and you're drafting him as the 20-something wide receiver off the board. Quick count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9. Yeah, so basically he's barely in top 25 right now, but if he plays the way he has played, and like he was drafted last year as a top 15 wide receiver, then it's definitely worth it. At tight end, TJ Hawkinson, just like to check the full ADP. So basically, the choices are Prescott, Golladay, Hawkinson. I don't want Robinson. I do like Mike Davis. That would be the perfect player for this team. Some other guys that are nice that would be on this team. You know, Chase Edmonds, if he happens to be the guy, or if Connor gets injured, which happens a lot. A Trey Sermon because of an injury. Michael Carter with the high upside. David Johnson a little less so. Harris Moss. Like any of these guys, you just want to get as many of them as possible and hope a couple work out and then go with them. But, man, this is a tough pick right here. Someone's picked a quarterback behind me. So before this comes back, there would only be one other team that could take a quarterback. And maybe they like Herbert more. I definitely don't. But if we pass on Prescott, we'd be looking at one of the next guys further down. I don't think it's the Mike Davis time. It's just whether or not it's Hawkinson or Galladay, and both the teams behind me have a tight end, so I'm going to take the best player available, Kenny Galladay, and I'm going to look right after the draft to flip two of these wide receivers for either a better wide receiver and some other piece, or for possibly a running back in kind of a 2-for-1 deal. Okay, so Herbert goes, and now the choice is, do you want to take quarterback here? I'm not a big fan of taking quarterback early, but Dak Prescott is just kind of one of those guys who he was very elite last season. Having said that, I'm fine with so many of these players here, but when it comes to tight end, I feel there's a significant drop after TJ Hawkinson. So I'm going to take TJ Hawkinson here, and we're going to keep waiting on running back. Mike Davis is not going to be the sexiest name in drafts, and a lot of teams are simply just going to avoid him because he doesn't have that upside. He's like, oh, what's he going to be? An older running back who is going to get a lot of touches? Yeah, that's exactly what he's going to be, and he's going to be fine as long as he stays healthy. So let's go tight end. Still not getting a running back, and deciding not to go with Dak because there's just so much more depth at the quarterback position that I'm fine with. As opposed to here, I feel the drop is more significant. So Hawkinson makes the mock draft team for the second week in a row, and a lot of wide receivers going. There goes Dak. There goes Davis, so not coming back. And now we need to start looking at running back. So we want to grab some of these players, and it looks like Raheem Mostert might be the guy. Oh, we just missed on Raheem Mostert, who would have been a pretty nice pickup because if he stays healthy, he's the guy. He's the lead back. If he gets hurt, Trey Sermon's going to be next man up. So now looking at these names, there's nothing that really stands out. I don't really see the point of forcing a quarterback here since all these guys are fairly even. We need to be taking a running back unless there's wide receivers that just have tremendous value, and I don't see any. So we're here looking at running back. There's been a lot of talk that Ronald Jones is the guy to own and not Leonard Fournette. That could be a possibility. Michael Carter is an interesting name. Don't think I can draft Trey Sermon right after Raheem Mostert has gone. I will not be drafting Kenyon Drake. I don't feel like Kenyon Drake is going to be much of a factor in Las Vegas. I think Josh Jacobs is a player that I'll be targeting in a lot of drafts simply because of how far his stock has fallen. Last year he was a late first-round pick, and now he's a late third-round pick right here. So, I mean, you don't drop... Like, he didn't have the best season, but it wasn't a terrible season either. I guess people are still upset by that one game where he said he wasn't playing and then played, or vice versa. I think the pick here is going to be Ronald Jones. Again, none of these running backs are going to be overly attractive to look at, but we're going to get a lot of them. And starting now in round 7, late round 7, we're going to start getting running backs. We'll keep an eye on the quarterback situation. And once everybody has one, we'll start looking to get one. That's the ideal strategy for quarterback. Unless you just get up to a pick and there's just no one you like and there's a quarterback you like. Then I don't have a problem with doing that, just not this early. Like 5th round at the earliest. And even then, I mean, just try to wait. So there goes Connor, who would have been somebody that I would have liked to get. There's Trey Sermon and there's Michael Carter. Both of them are up there. I just think Michael Carter has the better chance at being the one than Trey Sermon, simply because of Mostert. And I don't really think that the Jerick McKinnon or anybody else on the Jets roster is really threatening. So let's go with Michael Carter. It is close, though. It's just not, like, would have loved to have gotten Mostert, and then we could have packaged them and definitely had that situation, right? So that's, sometimes you don't want to target those, but sometimes you do, because the only reason they're going to give the other guy carries is if the other guy gets hurt, and the other guy has a track history of getting hurt, so. Let's see what comes back to us. There goes another quarterback, so we'll take a peek to see how many quarterbacks have gone. If this was a non-PPR league, Damian Harris would have a lot more value, and I probably would have picked him over Michael Carter, who has a lot more PPR value. So backup quarterbacks are going. This is just stupid at this point. I mean, why do you need Ryan Tannehill when you have Dak Prescott? I talked about this in the last mock, and I'm going to talk about it in every mock to make sure you understand you do not need to take Matthew Stafford if you have Kyler Murray. I'm the only team that doesn't have a quarterback, and I'm not going to give you anything for Matthew Stafford. There's Jalen Hurts. I'm fine with that. That might be the pick here. We're going to take a look at running back. Got Matt Ryan last time. Obviously, Carson Wentz now injured, so not somebody we'd want to look at anymore. Devin Singletary, Dylan, Edwards. Pollard's interesting. I just don't think Devin Singletary has that upside to be the guy. I think Zach Moss has it. I would have taken Zach Moss here if he's available. Well, we don't need another wide receiver, but it's always fun to take a peek. I don't think any of these guys, other than maybe Irv Smith, would have value. And again, tougher to trade a tight end. When you only need one, it's a different situation. So we'll take Jalen Hurts. Not my favorite pick, but I do want to take a different quarterback from last time, and I assume he's going to go. He's a high upside play, and if he misses, we can just grab somebody else off the waiver wire if they don't start going and getting 3 quarterbacks, which would just be odd and not very smart. So Jalen Hurts, high upside play, quarterback. We fill out our starting lineup now with Kenny Golladay on the bench. Don't forget that. So still looking at running backs. A.J. Dillon, an interesting choice. Tony Pollard. Gainwell, not so much. I think I'm going to go with Tony Pollard here. I have him higher in my rankings than I do A.J. Dillon. I believe. I could be wrong on that one, just double checking as I just updated him today. I do by a couple spots. I do have Phillip Lindsay 1 spot ahead of Tony Pollard, and I had Singletary 2 spots ahead as well. Gus Edwards is also a name on that list that's close by. Looking at my team, what I want is the potential upside, and Tony Pollard tends to bring that, and I could possibly trade him to the Zeke owner in some type of deal. So Tony Pollard on the team for the upside. And that's something to keep in mind, is you want to fit the players to your team. And my running backs don't look fantastic. We know that was going to happen. So taking guys that have the chance of being a higher ceiling, like a Gus Edwards is going to be more of a safer play. And Naheem Hines is going to be more of a safer play. They're going to have a role week in and week out. Sure, A.J. Dillon has the if Aaron Jones gets injured volume, but there's questions about his pass catching. Could he be a good pass catcher? They didn't pass much to him in college. Everything out of camp this year and last year says he's fine with catching the ball. So, but Tony Pollard has that high. Another guy who has a lot of potential here, J.D. McKissick. So J.D. McKissick is very interesting because in PPR he finished as a top 20 running back last year, and he never really had that many carries. Let's see if we can check out his stats. So twice over 10 carries, but the receptions 10, 8, 10, 15. Sorry, those are the targets. 14. Like, that's some healthy volume. Will it be the same type of offense with the new the new quarterback and Ryan Fitzpatrick? Tough to say. It's the same coaching staff, so it will be the playbook. It's just whether or not the quarterback looks that way. I do think Phillip Lindsay is an interesting name as well. Alexander Matthison's another Tony Pollard type of pick. I'm going to go McKissick because of the upside and because of what he was able to do. So I get both. I get somebody who, if the lead guy gets injured, can come in and play or split the carries, get more carries, and still have the passing volume. This is PPR, so J.D. McKissick on the team. I like him more than Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell could have that similar role, but yeah. So now I'll gamble on Phillip Lindsay after I take a peek around. Devontae Parker still. I don't understand why everybody's so low on Devontae Parker. Like, I mean, his ADP is around Marvin Jones. That's insane. I do like Rondale Moore. That's a very interesting flyer, but we really don't need a wide receiver. Like, we have Kenny Golladay on the bench. And I haven't looked at bye week, so barring us having 2 guys on bye at the same time, which isn't a big deal because we could simply pick somebody off the waiver wire for that 1 week and have a limited production, or maybe we can throw a running back in the flex. Like, and if everybody has the bye same week, we'll take that one loss and move on. So you don't need any more wide receivers, especially a Devontae Parker, who's just going to be kind of fitting in as a lower tier version of this. Arondé Moore could have a couple good games and be tradable, but we need to get some running backs. Philip Lindsay is going to be my pick here, just because I don't think David Johnson's very good anymore. Used to be great. And Lindsay's been solid like every year of his career. Injuries have come up from time to time, but if he gets enough work, we should be good. So just to let you know, there are no kickers, no defenses in this draft. If you were to pick a kicker or a defense, they would just be your last two picks. Preferably going defense first and then kicker. Alexander Matheson is basically jumping off the board here as another guy. And again, looking at these wide receivers, with our wide receiver situation, we need multiple injuries in order to even glance at them. Not going to be taking a backup quarterback. Whatever my bye week is, I'll just find somebody off the waiver wire. Won't be taking a backup tight end because we took a tight end early. If we had gone later with like a Henry Jonnu Smith situation, I don't know why you'd want both of those guys, but if we had waited on tight end and gotten someone like this, then this is not actually a bad idea, because if one actually ends up being the guy, then you have him and you can just get rid of the other one. So I don't mind the strategy. If you wait on tight end as long as that team did, I don't have a problem with taking two, because you're just hoping one of them is going to work out. But in most cases, like, Everett has upside, but Hooper, I guess he kind of does. Fant and Troutman, I mean, what's your best bet there? Troutman's actually really good, and you can trade him to who? Andrews doesn't want him. Kittle doesn't want him. Gronk might. This team might. Waller won't. Goddard shouldn't. Gesicki should be fine. We'll be fine. Kelsey and Pitts. Most of the teams have a solid tight end. They're not looking for one. So your trade market is really small on who you can trade with. And then what are you going to get in return for your 12th round pick here? So back to us, running backs, Matheson on the team. We might take another wide receiver just in case, but there's nothing wrong with loading up with running backs the whole way. Okay. Oh, I think I said Jerick McKinnon earlier about the Jets, and I meant Tevin Coleman. They're on the same team for so long, they just became one. Rashad Penny would be a decent pick here as well. But I keep hearing that he's not 100%. Marlon Mack is a guy I like, but he'll probably be on the waiver wire. It's gotten pretty thin down here, Jerick McKinnon and KC. Apologize for the earlier mess up. Yeah, it's Rashad Penny or nobody here, so let's take a look at wide receiver and see what we have. Okay. I'm trying to think back at who I took last time with these picks. And I don't think I took Gabriel Davis. I do like Jalen Reagor at this point of the draft. Talked about Tua last time, so we won't go over that. You can check out the last video. So let's go wide receiver. We have Stephon Diggs, so technically Gabriel Davis could act as the number 2 wide receiver in Buffalo and also a handcuff if Stephon Diggs gets hurt. I'm not going to tell you to handcuff your wide receivers. That's a bit extreme. But when the wide receiver, like a Darnell Mooney, if anything happens to Allen Robinson, Darnell Mooney becomes the number 1. But even if something doesn't happen to Allen Robinson, he's the number 2 guy, and if there's enough volume, he could be a person who's startable in a 3 wide receiver league like this one. Paris Campbell could end up being the number 1. He's an interesting name. I believe I probably took him last time. I'm just trying to pull my Instagram post to see. Of course, you can follow us on Instagram. It's blueduck.fantasy.football. Yeah, Paris Campbell was there with Russell Gage and Antonio Brown. We had McKissick last time and Michael Carter, but they were on our bench last time. TJ Hawkinson, the only other pick that we also had. So we won't go Paris Campbell. Let's go Gabriel Davis, just because I like the idea of potential number 2 and also the handcuff potential, because if Diggs gets hurt, I think Gabriel Davis is a better fit at the position, then Cole Beasley for sure. Emmanuel Sanders, don't know how much he has left. So Gabriel Davis will be on the team. 2 picks left, and at this point, we're looking for what I like to call 2-week players. There goes Paris Campbell. They are players who you're going to know within 2 weeks whether or not you're keeping them and trading them, or keeping them and maybe even starting them, or whether or not you're dropping them. So the one thing I don't want, that's a really nice Traquan Smith pick. Doesn't fit our team whatsoever, but it does fit a team that would have weaker wide receivers, because you're going to get somebody who's going to be the de facto number 1 in New Orleans for a month and a half. Hopefully not 2 months, but possibly. But he has Evans, Juju's, and Boyd. Like, it's not overly strong, so it gives him another position that he can maybe play the matchup early on in the season there. So, nice pick. Okay, so looking at wide receivers, I don't think there's anything left at running back. I mean, Mark Ingram could be a dart throw to see if he actually has a role in Houston, but I don't think he's going to. Elijah Mitchell's getting a little bit too deep in San Francisco. This would be like drafting Jeff Wilson or something. It's a bit too deep. Boston Scott, I don't think he's going to have much of a role. Too many people are talking about Gio. I don't think he's going to have much of a role. I do like Marlon Mack a little bit, and I would consider him at this spot, but I do think he'll probably last a bit longer. Not thinking of any of these tight ends, not even this guy, especially not that guy. So the name that's standing out to me here, again, Sammy Watkins doesn't fit our team, because even though he's probably going to have a great week 1, we aren't going to start him in week 1. We know what we have. So we want guys that are young, that have the potential to break out. Could you gamble on AJ Green still having it in Arizona? Yeah, I won't. I'm going to gamble on Bryan Edwards being the number 1 wide receiver in Las Vegas. If you want to gamble on Nico Collins being the number 1 wide receiver in Houston, yeah, you can absolutely do that as well. But I'll go with Bryan Edwards here. Okay, we got it working. And now it's back to us. And there goes Marlon Mack, who had a good chance of being the pick here. Just looking at the roster construction, 6 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 quarterback. We are going to be starting 4 wide receivers every week, so we only really have 2 extra wide receivers. We're going to be starting 2 running backs every week, but we have 4 extra running backs. Again, not going to take a backup quarterback, although Jalen Hurts is one of those quarterbacks that it wouldn't be the worst idea to take a backup quarterback, especially if he ends up losing his job. But these guys should just be on the waiver wire. The Winston Taysom Hill situation, you don't know who's going to end up there. Zach Wilson would be a high upside play as well, possibly. But I'm not going to take a backup quarterback. I'm not going to take a backup tight end. So it just comes down to wide receiver or running back. Tyrell Williams, interesting, but not for our team, because even if he does hit in air quotes, he's not going to be that great, and people aren't going to be that excited. They'll think, oh, he's older, he's just under for a week. Different story if Amari Rodgers hits. They'll think, oh, he's only going to get better. It's just kind of the way people look at things, right? The younger the player is, the better chance they have to keep getting better and keep going up. And I'm not seeing anyone that really stands out. No, again, John Brown doesn't fit our team, and we just grabbed the other guy in Las Vegas. So let's look at running back, and let's force a running back here. There's really not much. Okay, I think it's going to be Justin Jackson. Still seen as the number 2, at least in my eyes, for the Chargers. Eckler, a bit of a smaller back, was injured last year. I don't want to say he's injury prone. But they do like to have another back handle volume as well. So he gives us an option that we can plug in. I prefer Jackson to Kelly. And, I mean, Elijah Mitchell would be the only other guy. And if we check out the depth chart, I would assume he's 3rd. So on the depth chart, they have Wayne Gallman listed, I guess, kind of ahead of him, depending on how you look at this. Yeah, let's go Justin Jackson to end off the draft. It's a player that Matt loves, so Matt will be happy with the pick. And that'll wrap up our team. 7 running backs, even though we only have starting 2. 6 wide receivers, 4 of which will be started. 1 quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who's kind of a big gamble, but you're playing to win the league, so the upside on a player like that, especially in a 1 quarterback league. In a 2 quarterback league, I'd be a little bit more worried if I couldn't get a solid 3rd option. But in a 1 quarterback league like this I'm fine with Jalen Hurts. If he doesn't hit, or loses his job because he can't win a game, then we'll go and grab one off the waiver wire. Running backs in the 0 RB strategy, Ronald Jones and Michael Carter are the starters. Adams, Diggs, Robinson, Cooper are the wide receivers. Obviously a position of strength, and as I mentioned, we do have Kenny Golladay on the bench. Kind of wasting a bench spot. I would much rather trade him and another wide receiver and get back some better talent. We want the one player in the return to be the best player in the deal. The lesson to learn here is don't force any draft. Let the draft come to you, but this is an option that you have. If when it comes to your pick, like we had here, like it would have been a Joe Mixon or here, and even here, like Chris Carson would have been okay, but do you really want to force a Kareem Hunt pick at this Cooper pick? Or at this Golladay pick? Do you want to take Myles Gaskin? This lined up fairly well for us not to take running backs. If I was drafting without this in mind, I maybe would have thought Aaron Jones here, but after having Adams, having both, team scores enough. Carson's here, maybe Montgomery here, but I would have preferred Cooper. And I wouldn't have taken, there's just James Robinson, and I even said at the Golladay pick that I wasn't going to take him. So maybe Carson's the only one who fits into this team right here. And then we have Carson instead of Robinson, and I'm fine with that as well. Then we would have been looking for wide receivers, so we could have maybe taken, instead of a Hurts, somebody else. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Leave a comment below if you've ever done a draft where you didn't take any running backs and how that season turned out. And for all these teams that we're doing the mock drafts for, going to be kind of seeing how they would have done, not going overly deep into exact points, but looking at the rankings. Like, oh, this is the player that was drafted here. He was a top, like he was RB12. This one was RB25, wide receiver 6, 8, quarterback 4, and so on and so forth. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed yourself, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And that's it.